Well, hello everyone. It's me, Rashi, and we are talking about your health and your child's health in this extreme heat. Let me tell you, I have my water bottle right here. I have the background face. That's why it's looking a little funky. You need to drink a lot of water. And you're like, oh, of course, yes. But let me tell you, sometimes you're dehydrated and you don't even know it. I know I've been doing years and years and years of just stories on heat, especially when I was doing the morning show, just like how hot things can get, especially hot in the car. I'm actually talking about that in the broadcast today, and I'll be outdoors with one of the car experts talking about how hot it can get inside. Unfortunately, already we've this year reported on, happened 2 days ago, a canine dying in the heat, and children unfortunately left in the car. I mean, it can take less than 5 minutes. I mean, we're looking at 110-degree temperatures, feels like, so it can become an oven very quickly. In fact, when I do my live shot outside, I brought this, which is my daughter's fan that I would put on her stroller. She's not a stroller anymore, but yeah, it's just a great tool to have so you keep cool. You can get these like on Amazon. Also just makes for like just nice breeze there. One thing that you might not know about, you might have some family, friends, or you yourself have some heart issues. Well, being outdoors can be very dangerous for you. And there are so many reports of people who have had heart attacks. There's actually an increase nationwide when the temperatures reach the levels that we're looking at here. So I have one of my favorite doctors. Am I supposed to say that? Should I edit that out? I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble. Dr. John Higgins, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome, Rashi, and I'm glad to see you're keeping cool with that nice fan.
Oh, yes, I am keeping cool. You know, in the studio, you've been in the studio before.
Yes,
well, you come in with your white coat, but it is cold in here. So it's a huge, I thaw out in my car for at least 5 minutes after, doing the broadcast. I'm so glad you're talking to us because I, unfortunately, knock on wood, don't have any heart problems, but I know so many people that do in my family or friends. And it just seems like people, like we were talking about earlier, don't realize that they're doing too much. And that's the number one problem. Can you expand on that and what you see with the patients?
Yeah, well, Rashi, we all want our patients to do some exercise. That's really, really important. But when you add the heat factor to that, it's kind of like a bit of a stress test for them because the heart has to pump a lot harder and a lot more blood to get out to the skin so you can get rid of that heat that is coming into the body. So with a lot of patients that I have that have heart problems, whether it be they have coronary disease or heart failure, or they've had strokes, or they're just very frail and fragile, it's really, really, really important that they think of the heat as kind of as a risk factor. When it's really, really hot, it's kind of a little bit like smoking. It's a stress on the heart, and they should avoid that. So, like we talked about, making sure that they are hydrated. I mean, that's a really, really good point you brought up, Rashi, that our normal state indoors, especially when we wake up, is dehydrated. So you've got to make sure you are on top of that, and making sure that they tone it down a little bit when they are, in fact, doing a bit of that exercise, and doing it, of course, at the appropriate time in the day, or moving inside, like doing some exercises inside the Fox 26 studio where it's nice and cool.
Yes, and we have those long highways. I was going to say long hallways in here as well. When we say drink water, can you put a amount to it? Because I've read in some articles it's 8 ounces every 20 minutes if you're outside. Do you have some sort of gauge that you can give people?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty reasonable amount, Rashi, that you mentioned. So one of those water bottles that that you showed us before, the typical 10 or 16 ounce water bottle, if you're out in the heat of the day and you're exercising, you probably should be drinking at least one of those every 20 to 30 minutes while you're exercising. And of course, before you exercise, and then after you finish your exercise to cool down. Now, in terms of, people sweat differently, Rashi. If when people are acclimatized, actually they, their sweat is different to when they are not acclimatized. So and also, people's body types. Some people are able to cool down faster than other people, depending on, how much fat content they have, etc. So I think a good rule of thumb is that you definitely don't want to keep exercising until you get like thirsty. So, in other words, don't wait for that for symptoms just to trigger you. You want to keep ahead of that. That's number one. And then number two, one way you can potentially check is, which is more physiologic, of course, is your the color of your urine. If it is we're looking for a Chablis Chardonnay type. If it goes fairly dark or dark orange or darker, that
Uh-huh.
probably means you're really, really dehydrated. And of course, the other thing is symptoms. If you are feeling like you're getting a bit dizzy, lightheaded, if you're getting
Mm-hmm.
cramps in the muscles, lightheaded, and certainly if you feel like you're going to pass out, I mean, that's a very late warning sign, and you need to get out of that heat situation and probably lay down and cool off.
Yes, that is such a good point. And about the urine situation, my kids see me drinking water all the time because I
Yeah.
don't really like water. So I put lemon in it because I read, and you can, I guess, confirm this, that it helps absorb the water better than just straight water. So it's not like I'm having to
Yeah.
go to the bathroom all the time because I hate doing that. Um,
Right.
so having those electrolytes in and all of that, do you encourage that, like in those, not like a Gatorade, but like when you have those things that you can mix in, like liquid IV or
Oh,
something?
yeah, no, absolutely, Rashi. So what these studies have shown is that for sort of shorter workouts, like 30 minutes, or less, most of the time you are not going to lose that much in the way of electrolytes. But
Hmm.
if you're going longer, sort of more like 45 minutes to an hour, having a little bit of electrolyte to replace that salt, if that is, if you're working out outdoors, is
Hmm.
actually probably a good thing. It'll prevent you getting cramps, and it'll replace the potassium and the sodium that you're losing while you're sweating. So I definitely would recommend that if someone is particularly if they're working out kind of for a longer endurance type of workout, like a 45 minutes, an hour plus.
Hmm.
And if they're sweating a lot, now you don't have to do the like some people alternate. So when I'm running longer distances, for example, I might have after a half an hour have a water, and then after another 20 minutes, a half an hour, have some electrolyte like a Gatorade or something like that. So it's up to whatever works for you. Another option is salt tablets. You can get those over the counter caps and other brands. And those can also be used for those longer duration where you're losing a lot of salt and you're more likely to sweat. So, but the main thing is, Rashi, keep on top of it. You don't want to get into a situation where you're getting symptoms or you're not peeing. I mean, if you're not peeing regularly, that means you're probably in a dehydrated state as well.
Yes, and I was gonna say that I've kind of instilled that in my kids. So
Mhm.
when they do pee, they're like, "It's dark," or "It's not a sunset color," or something. And so they're like, "I'm dehydrated." Um,
Good
my
stuff.
3-year-old says detrated, but
Yeah,
she
of
doesn't.
course. Yeah.
But to continue drinking water because they want to play outside.
Hmm.
The good thing is in the school that my daughter goes to, they canceled recess for the next 3 days until the heat wave. I know that that's not required, but it kind of is the parents' discretion on whether or not you're going to do the splash day or whatever it is, because you have to make sure that your child has sunscreen, doesn't get
Right.
overheated. It can be dangerous for kids too.
Oh, absolutely, Rashi. And I think that's a really, really good move. A lot of the schools, I know my daughter's school, on those really, really, environmentally unfriendly days, they
Mm-hmm.
move the recess to indoors. And I
Mm-hmm.
think those are some of the things that you can do. We talked about hydrating. If you are outdoors, make sure you try to get, a nice hat. I mean, at least a cap but some sort of coverage, because you can take in a lot of heat during the sunny part of the day. We talked about, before 8 o'clock, in Houston now, I would say probably try to get out before 8 or 9 in the morning. And then in the evening, if you're going to go outside, probably 7:30, 8, wear those nice clothes that are evaporative. One of actually a common mistake I see, Rashi, is people, when they're working outdoors in the heat, wearing cotton. Cotton does not breathe. And in fact, you can get almost like an insulation. So those evaporative clothes that we're talking about here with the beats, the heats, they have this wicking type of material where it actually helps evaporate and helps cool you down. So those are definitely worth it and very, very important. The A is for acclimatized. Typically, that will take about 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the person, Rashi. So importantly, when you first move into an area with a different temperature, you want to make sure you give yourself time to acclimatize. Maybe doing more indoors and then transitioning slowly to the outdoors. Air conditioning, of course, on those really, really hot days if you're working out in the middle of the day. And importantly, T for tone it down. You want to think about reducing the time and intensity. Rather than going out for your 45-minute jog, maybe you can split it up. Maybe you could do a 20-minute jog earlier in the morning, and then maybe do a fast walk in your air-conditioned office at lunch for 20 minutes, or go for a bicycle later in the day. And then finally, you mentioned, Rashi, very, very important, that as for sunscreen and the shade, you can find out both from friends or online or yourself where some of the areas are where you can run, where it's really, really shady. I mean, there's some classic great places, in the Memorial Park area, Rice, around Rice Village, for example, and other areas in Houston where you can kind of stay on a path and be mainly under trees and in the shade. And those things can all help, because the breeze, the shade, and making sure you're wearing the right wicker clothing, and those things all add up to helping your body to stay cooler.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I want to make note of, and unfortunately we report on this quite frequently, is kids drowning. And one of the, being supervised is so important, but not just that. Unfortunately, a lot of times adults have not water, but alcoholic beverages while they're in the sun. Obviously not an ideal situation if you're watching kids, but also, what is that doing to your body in the heat?
Yeah, well, alcohol actually dehydrates you, Rashi, as well as energy drinks, which we've talked about before, can dehydrate. And some people even do, alcohol with the energy drinks, which can dehydrate. But the bottom line is, Rashi, I always tell my patients that, think of a glass of alcohol, like a cocktail or a beer or something like that. That will take out at least that same amount of water out of your body, dehydrating it. So I always say, have a glass of water chaser in between your drinks, if you are outside, and just sip on it, go slowly. And like you said, Rashi, if it's sort of almost like when you're driving, you need a designated watcher for the kids. So if it's going to be a group of adults outside with the kids, on the beach or at a pool or something like that, I mean, you've got to, someone's got to take the high road. Someone's got to draw the straw, and they have got to stay sober the whole time. So, that's what I would say to people. It's very, very important, because some of the common accidents, Rashi, that have actually occurred are exactly that. People not realizing, because they're not only their reactions are a bit slower, but they don't realize, they're not aware of what's going on around them until, unfortunately, it can be too late, So really, really an important thing, Rashi, that you mentioned. And, look, I'm all for people having fun. Definitely don't drink before you work out.
Right.
If you're going to go go for a jog, in the evening, and you come back. Like I'm all for. In fact, there's some studies showing, a beer, a nice beer after a run, for example, can actually help to, with your recovery. So look,
Just sounds gross.
uh,
After a
well,
run, I'm like, I just want water.
oh yeah. No, well, I mean, you're a girl
No, I
too,
know. Yeah.
Rusty. No, I know, but I no, I mean, some, there are some sort of things like that just to be aware of, because when you are working out, you a lot of people sort of go on autopilot, when
Yes.
they're jogging, and so you're already on sort of autopilot. But if you're impaired, you're going to be running along, and the next thing you could be on the ground, you could have hit something, or
Yes.
you're not aware of something. So I do totally agree that you need to be on top of things, and and also, Rashi, caffeine in general can dehydrate. So
Hmm.
another thing that sometimes I've run into with my patients, that not only the energy drinks, but sometimes people will do chug a bunch of coffee and stuff before they work out, to wake themselves up a little bit more. But the downside with that is you are going to dehydrate more.
Hmm.
So that's something to avoid again before you work out.
So you say that for every alcoholic drink, the same amount you do water.
Yeah. So one glass of your cocktail, or one beer, then I want you to drink at least an 8-10 ounce glass of water after that, and then that should help to counteract that effect. And also, so not only preventing you from getting dehydrated, but to process the alcohol, your body needs lots of water, and that will actually help process the alcohol faster. When you're dehydrated, you stay drunker, or buzzed longer
Hmm.
than when you're well hydrated. So that's also an important thing for people to think about.
All right. So like a shot of tequila doesn't mean just a little shot of water. You have to do the same.
Exactly, like a full
Full
glass,
glass.
or
Yes.
regardless, if it's wine, beer, cocktail, or whatever.
Yeah.
And one thing that, of course, cold. Whatever you're drinking, Rashi, we do recommend that you try to go with cold,
Hmm.
rather than hot things. There's some evidence that whether that be the cold water, the cold Gatorade, or if you're having if you're just outside and relaxing, having a cold cocktail, with ice in it, or a cold beer, or wine,
Hmm.
you've probably seen more and more people are drinking, Chardonnay in a nice glass, or with ice. And that's actually another good thing, because you're going to be drinking less alcohol, you're going to be getting more water, but that cool coming into your body, actually it acts as a little bit of a heat sink. It actually helps to cool your body when you put cool things in. Now, you don't want to go super chill. You want to, so there is a little bit of a range. You don't want it like so ice cold that you can, it kind of hurts. Those,
Yeah.
but certainly the preference is to go definitely below room temperature, kind of like you would get something out of your refrigerator,
Hmm.
that sort of temperature. That can actually help to prevent your temperature of your body going up as well. So when you're at the gym, definitely go with cold fluid replacements when you're working out, and you won't get as overheated as fast.
Awesome. And also just the fruit juices as well, just not a ideal option for
Oh
kids,
yeah.
because I know there's pool parties and it's like, oh, here's the apple juice, and the water is the best.
Oh, absolutely, Russia. Those things that anything with high in sugar, high in caffeine, alcohol, those things are going to dehydrate you. What you want to focus on is mainly water, good old water. Now, another thing, for kids, Rashi, I think is a great idea is, fruits that are packed with water. So, get that watermelon, slice up the watermelon for the kids outside. I mean, it's like 90% plus water.
Hmm.
So that's great, especially if kids are like, oh, we don't want to drink water. I mean, they'll dive into the watermelon, or, other things that are a little bit more healthy, and, oranges and things, rather than the actual juice. Because most of the juices you get these days are kind of pretty loaded with sugar, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Dr. Higgins, thank you so much for taking the time to give us these very important tips. I know some of them might seem like, very common sense, but unfortunately, that's something that people don't necessarily do. I know even me on my runs, like I felt like cold one time and I'm like, okay, well, this is not right. Let me slow down and drink some water, because you're just in it and you just don't think about any of the ramifications. So thank you so much. And I hope to talk to you soon about other heart health type situations. So thank you again.
Thanks, Rashi. And for all the listeners there, stay cool, exercise smart, and have a wonderful summer.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us. And if you have any questions, please do list them on the comments. We really appreciate you over on our YouTube page, our Facebook, and also our website. So I'll see you next time on another edition of